the weirdest fucking times when that news arrives, man. It's now Monday morning, February 25th, 2025. And I had a busy weekend. I had some time, like 30 minutes, maybe 60-minute pockets here and there all weekend where I could hop on the pod, and I'm really I'm really committed to getting the pod out every week. Even if I don't have shit to talk about, even if I'm not caught up on UFC, which is kind of my plan, to talk about M&A for the next year or so. I want to do it every week and just blabber regardless. But all weekend, even when I had like 30 minutes here, 60 minutes there, even in the car like this, I don't know, it's like sometimes the muse doesn't show up. Sometimes the inspiration doesn't show up. It's so strange when all of a sudden I just feel like, I gotta talk, I gotta get shit off my chest. And even at this moment, I don't have anything specific to say, but I'm just stuck in traffic and I'm feeling like, okay, now's the time to do the pod. So I'm in this crazy car, I'm recording on I'm holding a GoPro and a tripod in my hand. There's my cell phone I'm also recording. If they're about to pass some sort of fairly significant accident, usually not traffic this time of day in LA. I'm in a car that essentially drives itself, this Kia EV9, which has like, you know, sensitive cruise control where it can sense the car in front of you, but they can also sense the lane. So I'm a hand on the wheel, but it's basically doing itself. I don't know, I just feel like now's the time to go. I still have not caught up on UFC, man. I watch fights every night, or some version of. I'm currently, last night I was watching the prelims of Cannonier, who did Jared Cannonier? Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop, which was a UFC Apex event from the week after my birthday, February 15th. And then this past Saturday, February 22nd, was the UFC event in Seattle, which I was hoping to catch up with. I was hoping to have a little little watch party, just hang out with my buddy Anthony, who's my first ever fellow UFC fan I ever met here in LA, who's a good buddy of mine. Really my only friend I've really made here in LA in 5 years, which is bizarre. I've made other friends, but dude I hang out with like not even that regularly outside the gym or anyway. But I don't know, I've been watching them slowly, I consume them slowly. I've also been watching a ton of 1FC. 1FC is this organization in Asia, Singapore based, run by this dude, this Harvard graduate named Shatri Shichakong. And I don't know, some people don't like trust him. I think he's kind of smart and used car salesman-y, but apparently if his story is true, he has a very cool kind of rags to riches life story. Started this, what was originally, I guess, like a mixed martial arts organization in Asia. And they put on good shows and they're well run and they have some big names. But recently I think I talked about this last week, they've gotten away from only MMA and they have Muay Thai fights, they have, Jiu-Jitsu, they have BJJ matches, they have a number that's not just MMA, which is cool. And dude, some of these Muay Thai bouts that these guys have had are fucking badass. If you're turning into combat sports for just like knockouts, punches and kicks, like that's kind of the common complaint from the casual fan a lot of times at MMA, is that like they don't understand the grappling's boring, the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu on the ground. These Muay Thai fights, man, they're not using boxing gloves, they're using MMA 4-ounce gloves, tiny gloves, and these dudes are just getting after it. Punches, kicks, knees, elbows, there's knockouts all the time. They're short, fast-paced rounds. So one championship, man, I know they've kind of taken some heat recently with like, I don't know, not giving their big name talents enough fights and not being like well run financially. There's always some kind of like investigative report on their finances and shit, but I don't know, man, it's been super exciting to watch their events, but they put on events constantly and they're like 4-hour events, so I've been watching those just like chronologically. And I like to just consume the pre and post shows for all these UFC events as well, and so I don't know, I just like to consume it slowly and learn about the sport. So I haven't caught up on UFC. I just general commentary about UFC. So like thus far we've had 2 pay-per-views. We had UFC 311, which was here in LA, right after the fires, and that's the one where Islam Makhachev was scheduled to face Arman Tsarukyan. and Sarukian had to pull out, and Hinata Moicano, which is like a fan favorite. I love Moicano because he's a fucking libertarian, crypto guy. He knows his shit. On the mic afterward, oftentimes, or even the pressers, this is Hinata Moicano, the guy that replaced Arman Sarukian in UFC 311 that was in Los Angeles in January. This dude's always referencing like libertarian philosophers and shit, like Mises and stuff, like writers and thinkers that I had only heard from my ex-girlfriend, who kind of introduced me to libertarian philosophy. So I love this motherfucking guy. I consider myself a libertarian if you had to put me in the political box. And anyway, this is my rambling. You guys ass beat in that short notice step-up fight for the championship. After that, just very wide-ranging UFC shit is been a lot of middleweight action. Middleweight, which is a deep division, which is kind of, I think, maybe the glamour division of the UFC, or at least the one that is like, it's middle, it's in the middle, right? The guys aren't super small, they're not giants, it's maybe the best representation of fighting. The guys are big, that's kind of my division too. I'm 6, I walk around the world like 6'3", 215, and so middleweight's 185, that would realistically be like the 30-pound weight cut that a lot of these dudes do. Maybe I'd fight a light heavyweight hypothetically in any sort of MMA scenario. But middleweight, you had Israel Adesanya, who's like the greatest middleweight of our generation. He kind of emerged when I started watching UFC in the, like I talked about last week, which is like the ESPN era, when UFC got the broadcast rights deal, went over to ESPN. That kind of, I feel like when UFC went mainstream, it's when I started really following it regularly. That deal with ESPN is about to be up actually at the end of this year, and the UFC has decided, another just like news and notes point, that they are going to like enter free agency, so to speak, right? They're not going to sign a deal. They're not going to re-up with ESPN before this deal expires. So they're going to let the deal expire. They're going to go out there and pursue other suitors, you know, and there's a lot of other players in the game now. YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of these independent streaming operations. It doesn't have to be on linear television. It used to be on Fox. It used to be, before that was on like Spike TV. So it's like it went from Spike TV to Fox to ESPN. And I imagine now it'd get chopped up like the NFL and the NBA does, where it's on various networks. Like maybe got some pay-per-views on Amazon Prime, got some pay-per-views on YouTube, but I imagine they'd also keep a relationship with ESPN. I'm holding this GoPro in my hand, and who knows what the fucking, if you're even like seeing my face, I keep letting it twist. I imagine they would keep a relationship with ESPN just because they want to maintain that connection to the mainstream sports market. But dude, you go with fucking Netflix, you play your events on Netflix, you're not just talking about mainstream sports market, you're just talking about mainstream. So who knows? They're gonna sign a massive deal with the UFC before 2026, and it's gonna change the game. Anyway, back to middleweights. Israel Adesanya took on Nasruddin Imavov in Saudi Arabia. Israel Adesanya is the greatest middleweight of the past several years of kind of this generation of fighters. But he's 35 now, and he's taken some bad losses. Not bad losses, but he's taken some losses recently. But all of his fights for the past, 5 years have been 5-round main events. So he took a loss to Nasruddin Imavov in Saudi Arabia, which was kind of surprising. Okay, is this the end of Izzy? Are we ready to move on to a new generation of middleweight? The following event was UFC 312 in Sydney, Australia, where the main event was the current middleweight champion, Dricus du Plessis, who, did he beat Izzy? I think he did beat Izzy, versus Sean Strickland, which was a rematch. Sean Strickland beat Izzy, was it 2 years ago? And then he defended against Dricus du Plessis, and Dricus du Plessis beat Sean Strickland to get the belt. It was a very close fight, so this was the rematch. And Dricus won. Sean Strickland didn't show up at all, man. That was the last full event I watched. That was UFC 312. Sean Strickland didn't show up, man. And I love Sean Strickland too, because he talks shit. He's completely unfiltered. He's pretty much a libertarian. We're on kind of the same page politically. And he's not afraid to talk about it. He says wild shit that I don't agree with as well. But also it's like very bombastic and intentional. Where someone like Hinata Moicano, who I mentioned earlier, the lightweight that stepped in for Arman Sarukian against Islam Makhachev at UFC 312, he's more genuine and intellectual. The fucking camera, dude. This fucking camera. Maybe I'm using the cell phone too. Maybe use cell phone video. So I'm pulling into the gym now. It's 9:30. Sean Strickland's way more bombastic and kind of intentionally pro wrestling to kind of ruffle people's feathers. But he talks a huge game about, like, you know, dying in the cage for you and everything. Dude, he's kind of he went from being this, like, known as like this former neo-Nazi standard, like kind of stereotypical crazy MMA fighter who is not palatable to mainstream audiences, to kind of being more refined in like his talk and making it more like political and anti-COVID and anti-big government. And so that resonates with a lot of MMA fans. And then, but now it's like he's almost bought into that so much that he's like almost taking on this like politician-y role. I bet you this dude runs for office at some point. And I should release it from my fucking face. Again. And yeah, he showed up not like a politician. He fights. He got his fucking nose smashed in that fight, broken. He like reset his nose in the fight. I mean, the dude's a total badass, but I don't know, the way he talks and his persona, you kind of expect him to just go balls to the wall, and he just didn't have that kind of performance in against Dricus du Plessis at UFC 312 in Sydney. But Dricus is an animal, and it looked like Sean Strickland had staph infection as well on one of his arms, and so that can, especially if you're on antibiotics, that can deplete you. But staph's very common in the game. And then the following week was another middleweight fight. Middleweight again, right? Yeah, Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop, and that's the event that I'm watching now. This is the UFC Apex event. So middleweight is kind of popping right now. That's generally speaking what's going on with the UFC. Right now, it's another big news, like in the combat sports world. Saudi Arabia's taken over the boxing game completely. I've got maybe 15 more minutes I can rant. Saudi Arabia's taken over the boxing game completely. And there's some drama with Jake Paul, who's an influencer boxer, was going to fight Canelo Alvarez, which is who is a like superstar boxer, one of the greatest boxers of all time. And when Jake Paul emerged on this influencer YouTube boxing scene, you know, several years ago, people laughed at him, but he's just beat dude's ass ever since. Granted, the only actual professional boxer his age he's ever fought is Tyson Fury's brother, Tommy Fury, who's not a high quality professional boxer, and he lost. Speaking of which, Jake Paul, wherever you are in this GoPro and my cell phone, I want you in an MMA fight. I want Jake Paul in an MMA fight. If I haven't said this before on the podcast, I want it. I'm sure I've said it on the Legion of Zoom. I want Jake Paul in an MMA fight. I want that fight. I want that fight. I want the Jake Paul fight. I'm being serious. I don't want to become like an MMA fighter who just turned 37 years old. I do not want the brain damage. But a Jake Paul fight, I think the storyline is there between Jake Paul and I's life stories and similarities, and then obviously stark differences. It's like we're kind of the same guy, broy white guys raised in the suburbs, but that went two totally different paths in life. And I think that's a cool storyline. We can get more into that, but I'll take it. I know he's a professional boxer. I want the fight. He has a contract with PFL, Professional Fighters League, from what I understand. He's supposed to fight an MMA fight, I think. I want it. Come on. That's a good first fight for the dude. This guy, I'm 0-0, amateur, no experience. I have some grappling experience, jiu-jitsu tournaments. He's got professional boxing experience. That could get approved by a commission. Anyway, he's supposed to fight Canelo Alvarez on Netflix, I think was kind of the deal. And then this dude, Turki Al-Sheikh, who's like the head of the Saudi Arabia Sports Commission. And this guy's just like running shit in boxing now, just paying all the fighters what they want, making the big fights for outrageous amounts of money because he works for fucking Saudi Arabia, and it doesn't matter if they take a loss in any of these events. He stepped in, he pulled Canelo out of Jake Paul, lured him away with big money. So now Canelo's not going to fight Jake Paul, and he's going to fight Terrence Crawford, which is the real fight that everybody wants in September. Terrence Crawford moving up in weight to unify belts with Canelo. I don't know nearly much boxing. Boxing is very like kind of fucked up because the government has stepped in. There's something called the Ali Act, which was this piece of congressional legislation, federal legislation that got introduced, I guess, towards the end of Muhammad Ali's career to quote unquote protect boxers, but it fucks up the sport. I guess it like protects fighters in a sense, but it's like, is the federal government of the United States job to like be professional boxers, agents, and management team? Is that what George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, the founding fathers, had in mind when they created this experiment in freedom and democracy? Is that fucking big government is gonna take on like a managerial role for professional athletes? Like, what the fuck is going on? It's so crazy, man. But it's like these politicians just keep after doing more and doing this, and something like professional boxing is big and mainstream, and people and voters will take notice. It's so fucking nuts, man. It was the same shit back in the 90s or 2000s when there were Congress was holding like commissions and investigations with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa about steroids in baseball. I was like, what the fuck is this? You guys are fucking massacring hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians. And you're holding fucking congressional hearings on steroids in baseball? What is happening? It's ridiculous. It's a major distraction. It's just like MMA is, which is why I don't think like me sitting here and rambling about sports into my phone is like my long game for what I want to do with this podcast, and my exploration of truth in my life is talking MMA fights. But it's what I'm obsessed with right now. It's I'm sitting outside of my gym right now, about to go train for fucking 4 hours. So, and I just want to talk about my life, but also use this as a vehicle to just talk about the world and get the reps of just rambling and the fluidity of thought. So anyway, Saudi Arabia changing the boxing game, but they're going to repeal this Ali Act. Dana White, the commissioner of UFC, has been talking for a long time about wanting to get into the boxing game. It's just really difficult to do so because of the government regulation. Dana White, commissioner of the UFC, is also very close boys with Donald Trump. And it is appearing they're going to repeal the Muhammad Ali Act, which would allow a big-time player like the UFC to come in and kind of just buy up a bunch of fighters. And especially in conjunction with Saudi Arabia, who's got unlimited funds. The whole boxing game could change very soon. There's a bunch of different boxing organizations right now. The PBC and the IBF and the Ring Magazine. There's like all these different little organizations that are like siloed off. I don't know. I don't honestly quite fully understand it, but it's not cool. It's not fun because all of the top fighters are signed to different organizations, and it's, you know, one guy's with X organization, one guy's signed with Y organization, and if they don't come to terms, like it takes forever for them to come to terms if they ever do at all. That's why you have fights like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather that took a decade to get made, and by the time it did, the guys are both kind of old and washed up. But so the boxing game is going to change here. It's looking like coming up. I gotta piss. I gotta plug this car in. But personally, in my like combat sports world, I have I don't know, like maybe my 7th, 5th, I don't fucking know, jiu-jitsu tournament coming up this weekend, March 1st and 2nd at the LA Convention Center. It's the IBJJF, which is kind of like the, I guess, the premier jiu-jitsu organization. IBJJF LA Open. It's the first tournament I've done since November. I got from what I understand, I think people either choose gi, which is like, you know, like the karate type outfit that you think of traditionally, or no gi, which is just like shorts and a rash guard, like a tight shirt. There's 2 different types of jiu-jitsu, gi and no gi. I'm about to go train no gi, then Muay Thai kickboxing, then gi. Consecutive right now, so I gotta hop on this card in a second. But I'm doing both, man. And last time I won gi and no gi. And so that's my goal going in, if I'm being completely honest. I do want to show up with the mentality, like, it really is, I've talked about this before, like, it really is just brave to be there and do your best. I really do believe that. But also, I'll be disappointed if I don't win. So I'm there to win. Who knows, man? If there's some, like, fucking... Who knows, like, what the competition is going to be. So if there's some, like, former fucking Olympic wrestler over there that's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, then, you know, whatever. But it's my first tournament as a blue belt. I got my blue belt right after I got double gold at the last tournament, and so I've had blue belt since November. It's my first tournament as blue belt, and so I'm excited about it. The only concern for me right now is that the last couple tournaments I did were with an organization called Jiu-Jitsu World League, and their weight classes are different, and I just assumed it was all the same. So I've always told myself I don't want to cut weight. I just want to show up what I walk around at, and just whoever, whatever the size, whatever the belt, go ahead and scrap. The problem is the weight cutoff for Nogi and IBJJF is 215 pounds. That's pretty much what I walk around at. Once you put on shorts and underwear and a shirt, you're at like 216, maybe 217. And I got to be exactly 215. And my weight stays steady like every day. And my nutrition and my whole routine, I thought I had dialed in and locked in. But it turns out I probably need to lose a couple pounds this week, which is not hard to do. I just don't want to. Anyway, it's a very small issue, but it you get anxiety around these things, man. You want to do well, and it's intense. You can get hurt. It's people watching, and it's like a lot of work and training. This is all I do with my free time for the most part. So a lot of work and training goes into it. So yeah, I gotta lose a couple pounds this week. I might already be on weight actually, but just like maintaining that and the diet and not smoking too. Really, what it is smoking too much weed at night and getting munchies. And I eat healthy food, but like I'll eat like fucking 10 apples or something, you know. So that's that. I had that tournament this weekend. We had JoJo's birthday party this past weekend. We had JoJo's birthday last week, the 20th. So my precious little angel turned 6. I turned 37 the week prior. And we keep cruising off in the future. I know I teased some like big life news. I don't think that cat is officially been announced publicly as far as like significant major life news. But yeah, it appears there's going to be significant major life changes coming up here soon. What have I captured on this GoPro? Maybe not looking at it all. Look at my phone. So yeah, that's that. I'll keep grinding out UFC this week. Hopefully catch up. I made bets. Dude, I finally made some bets. I took a couple weeks off sports gambling, and I want to talk about sports gambling on this podcast. And like my plan for this week was to sit down with the UFC Seattle card and like talk through each of my bets. I didn't do any of the preview. I'm not even on that. I haven't finished watching the previous week's card. Kenanier Rodriguez, UFC Apex. But I'd taken a couple weeks off gambling. Dude, I just put like $1 down in every fight on the UFC card. So I'd say there's 10 to 15 fights. So it's like 20, not even like 10 to 20 bucks a weekend. On each of these UFC cards, but it makes it so much more entertaining to just have $1 in the fight. So it's very interesting, this like dopamine what that does. Like, what is the neurochemical thing that's going on in your brain? Just have one more dollar in the fight, how much more interesting it makes it. So I'll start talking more gambling as well coming up. That's it. For now, I gotta hop in, I gotta piss, I gotta plug this car in, I gotta change, and I have 19 minutes until class starts. The fuck else? Tournament this weekend. Oh, it's for the first time ever too. I think it's gonna be on separate days. Gi on one day and no gi on another day. So back-to-back tournaments, Saturday and Sunday. That's different for me because you guys go ham on fucking caffeine and adrenaline, and I usually get an Adderall from a friend, and so I'm all fucking hyped up by the end of these tournaments. I don't want to eat, and that usually the nights after the tournaments, it's usually Saturday night, I can't sleep, and so it's gonna be, that's a whole nother variable too. If I have gi on one day and no gi on the following day, that I need to like manage my caffeine intake and amphetamine intake and make sure I get a good night's sleep before the following day if I'm back-to-back tournament days. So that's another factor. That's this weekend. The following weekend I fly to Chicago to see my family. My older sister and her kid, and hopefully my little sister's gonna be there too. My mom will definitely be there. So that's what's popping out here. I've got some kind of interesting dating stories. I've been like debating whether I should share this. They seem maybe too personal because they involve other people's lives and shit. I would never say any names or anything, but yeah, man. Some of the greatest sadnesses of my life have been caused from breakups or failed relationships or whatever, but a lot of people out there, man. I know it's like the most common fucking trite old man saying, it's a lot of fish in the sea, but it's very true. And it's hard to find someone that matches with you in particular, but like most people are good people, and that's like very inspiring and very encouraging that like most people have big hearts. Then it'd be a perfect match for you, but there are a lot of good, nice, caring, loving humans out there. And I think when you start showing up as your best self and you stop like ignoring all those little things that are nagging you in the back of your head about things you need to do, whether it's changing your diet or losing weight or drinking less or smoking less weed or finally getting to work on that like passion project that you wanted to, or maybe it's just like cleaning your room or whatever. When you start to like stop ignoring those little hard things and start doing them, I think you start to place yourself energetically on a different vibe, and you start attracting those relationships that you kind of desire, right? I found myself a lot of times in life getting like kind of like stuck in this ruts where, why am I lonely? Like, why am I lonely? Why am I having, not that I've ever been in search of a partner, but like, why am I lonely essentially? Why do I feel lonely? And at the same time, like, you're not doing the things, you're kind of ignoring things that are nagging you that you know you should do to improve yourself. And not only will doing those things, once again, it could be big things, going to fucking grad school, it could be small things, making your bed every morning. Once you start like putting those things together, it starts chipping away at the loneliness, just the action of doing those things. And then I really do think you kind of start putting yourself on an energetic plane at that point where like people start becoming attracted to you. Both, you know, platonic and romantic. So yeah, interesting dating stories out here. Dating apps are fucking a wild ride, man. I think a lot of times dating apps, you're finding people who are lonely, who are at that point in their life where maybe they're not doing the things they know they should, and they're just gonna have a breakup, or perhaps there's a reason they're single because they're not doing those things or whatever. They're on the wrong energetic trajectory or something. And so I think dating apps are very frustrating to a lot of people because it's a lot of people in that situation. And so you feel like you're not finding people that are like lifting you up in a way. And it's almost like you're out there looking for something to lift you up when probably you should take some time and turn your phone off and reflect on what can you do, what can you control to improve your life and make yourself happier. I don't know. I think you just find a lot of people on dating apps that are in like not the best spot in their life. And it's usually temporary for most people, you know? And so I think people get frustrated with that because they're like, why am I not finding, you know, it's because I think you're kind of swimming in a pool of people that are not at the best spot in their life. Anyway, I've been on dating apps so many times, so in no way am I judging that at all. But also I think, you know, it's technology and it's numbers game, and I think you could totally find someone that's compatible on there as well. You know, and it's become frustrating, but also with all things like dating apps, but all forms of technology that have its downsides, like we need to maintain the perspective, like, dude, that's fucking crazy. This is a crazy technology. It's a cool technology. Yeah, it's frustrating. It has negative impacts, but like, it's a tool. You don't have to use it, you know? All right, I got 50 minutes. I got to get the fuck out of here. I don't know how I ended up fucking dating app. I think that's it. I love you all. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.